Hello friends. So most of you already know that I sort of live in two different worlds. I live in this world of therapy where I help people overcome personal problems, and I live in the world of the esoteric where I teach mysticism, philosophy, and esoteric sciences. And people who know me from one world or the other world, they sometimes ask really interesting questions. Without a doubt, overall, the most common question I get is, what is it like to actually meditate? Now, I have to preface this and explain it this way. The question arises because within the circles of mysticism and the esoteric sciences, the concept of meditation is very different from the way the word meditation is used in general, particularly in the media. From a mystical point of view, what most people mean by meditation is really a form of relaxation, in some cases not even that, right? And of course you're free to define meditation however you wish. I'm just saying that for the most part in the mystical area, the concept of meditation has a very particular, we have a particular understanding of what that is. Now, having said that, you might be wondering, okay, well, define it for me, explain it to me what meditation is. And I cannot, and the reason why I cannot is because the whole experience of meditation happens precisely outside of the mind. And any definition I could possibly provide you with is a mental description of a non-mental experience. So, no matter how I define it, no matter how I explain it, and there are many books that talk about this, all of those explanations are nothing more than illusions or parables or just, they're almost like constructs of the mind. You see, by definition, to explain something that is by definition not mental. So there are different ways of providing metaphors and explanations. And this morning, when I was walking my babies around the block, I like to take them for a walk in the morning, this one way of talking about meditation came to my mind, and I thought it would be useful to all of you. So one way to understand meditation mentally, of course, the actual experience of meditation is non-mental, but one way of mentally understanding the experience would be to say that in meditation, you end up finding yourself. And most people say, well, but I don't have to meditate to find myself. I know who I am. I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I live at such and such address. And of course, all of those things that we think we are from the perspective of meditation is exactly what we're not. In other words, we have built mentally a shell of empty concepts to substitute for what we really are. We're none of those things, although we understand ourselves to be those types of things: name, title, address, possessions, money, bank accounts, and we're none of those things. There's nothing wrong with living that experience or enjoying a good life. I'm just saying that's not what we are, right? That's all that I'm saying. And incidentally, this is one reason why meditating is so difficult for some people, because we become so attached to what we're not. And the notion that we may not be what we value the most is a little bit scary. So we kind of resist, we pull back a little bit. All of this is normal, and it's going to make more sense to you as we go along this explanation. So think about it this way. If meditating is about finding yourself, and if we're kind of locked into this experience of everything that we're not, then the expression, you may recognize this expression, I need to find a needle in a haystack. So this is one of those expressions that we use in our culture, to signify something that is almost impossible to do. How am I going to find one needle in a haystack? And people use this expression, they throw it around as though it is obvious that it cannot be done. But in reality, you can do it, you can find the needle. Listen, if I have a whole haystack over here, no matter how big it is, right? And I tell you, look, there's a needle in there, go find it. And if you just jump into the haystack blindly looking for the needle, I agree, it might be a little bit difficult, particularly because as you disrupt the haystack, you might move the needle around and you might never find it. But if you begin to remove one piece of hay at a time, you take one straw and you put it over here in a different pile, and then you take another one and you put it over there, and another one and you put it over there, and you tell me, but dude, I have tons of hay over here and one needle. I'm not saying it's quick. I'm just saying if you take one piece of hay at a time and you make sure that within that piece of hay there's no needle, and if you were to continue this process systematically and remove every single piece of hay from this stack of hay, eventually only one thing would be left. What would that be? And you might say, well, eventually if I could remove all the hay and there's a needle in there and I don't move the needle, the only thing left over would be the needle. Yes, and you would find it, wouldn't you? So we need a system. So is with meditation. In fact, we call this the eliminative meditation. It's one approach to meditation. It isn't meditation itself, it's one approach to get into the meditative state. We begin to eliminate everything that isn't what we are from our experience. So the way this actually goes is this. You would sit down. You can open your eyes or close your eyes, it doesn't matter. I typically suggest to students that they sit down as opposed to lay down, because when we lay down, there's a tendency to fall asleep, particularly if you're tired, whatever. So sit down up on a chair and just try to quiet your mind down, whatever that means to you. You'll very quickly notice that it becomes like the haystack. In other words, thoughts bombard you, all kinds of thoughts. I gotta do this tomorrow, I gotta call this guy back, I gotta do this, I gotta do all kinds of thoughts. As you look at each one of your thoughts, remind yourself, say to yourself, yes, but that's not what I am. Yes, but that's not what I am. In other words, I have to put gas in the car. Yes, but that's not what I am. That's just a thought. That's just a to-do item in my physical existence. It's not what I am. And you will notice that as you keep on repeating this affirmation, it's not what I am, those thoughts begin to slow down a little bit. They keep on coming, but they begin to slow down a little bit. It's almost like your mind is relaxing. And you stay there, you stay calm, and you eventually begin to wonder with amazement what the next thought to show up in your mind might be. And when that happens, you realize that you're no longer thinking or experiencing the thoughts. You're now observing the thinker. You see, had I told you this up front in this explanation, it wouldn't have made any sense. But now that you've been able to observe yourself thinking certain thoughts, you can see three different items there, three different things there, three different categories of things. First, there are the thoughts, they have life. Then there's the thinker, the person thinking the thoughts. And then there's the one observing the thinker thinking the thoughts. Looking back now, you realize that most people have trouble meditating because they actually think they are their thoughts. Now, let's slow down on this. Most people think that they are their thoughts. In other words, a person says to you, I work in therapy, remember they say, well, I think I'm stupid. Well, therefore I'm stupid. Or I think I'm ugly, therefore I'm ugly. You see? They actually think they are their thoughts. When that happens, we're profoundly enmeshed in our own minds. And that is a very sad state for a human being. It is analogous to being locked up inside of a cave. It's really sad because we're not our minds. And then the first stage, for instance, in therapy, we follow the same path. The first stage is to separate the thinker from the thoughts. Now a person thinks a certain thing, but they're able to say to themselves, oh, I'm thinking this, but I'm not that. Oh, I think I'm stupid, but I know I'm a child of God, I'm okay. And yet I recognize that I'm thinking this. I'm thinking, I'm afraid, I'm anxious, I'm thinking this or feeling that, but I realize it's just a thought. You see, we've separated the thought from the thinker. That's the first stage. And then, in meditation, you realize that you're not the thought, you're not the thinker, you're the one observing the thinker, which is now thinking. When you realize that, and you somehow observe that you are all of it, and yet none of it, you somehow connect with the entire universe. The feeling of separation, distance, fear, loneliness, all of that disappears because suddenly you find yourself connected to everyone and everything at all times. The sensation of time disappears, your memory clears up, you remember what you have done thousands of years ago with clarity, with the same clarity that you remember what you did yesterday. You see, it all kind of comes back to you, but it doesn't come back to you with a sense of guilt, because there's quite a bit of damage there. It comes back to you with a sense of compassion and forgiveness. You see? And your life changes because there's a renewed sense of purpose. We have a lot of work to do here, but the work that we have to do is a work of love. This is a dense topic. We can talk more about this. If this interests you, make sure to comment on this video and we'll talk more about it. Thank you very much. And good luck, and let me know if you need help meditating. I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you.